Welcome, everyone. We are back, and it is a very interesting week. We just had a brief conversation around this topic, and it is juicy, I'm telling you, because the moment you think of stress, I am sure there are plenty of things that come to mind that you could say, like, hell yeah, I'm stressed. Stressed about whatever comes to mind: work, children, family, relationships. Anywhere you go, there can be something related to stress. Yet, we're not going to go straight into all these juicy things that I was thinking about and that we just shared with each other. First, because in this conversation, and actually before we even started, I knew that I wanted to start today's conversation with a breathing exercise. So before I do that, and before I forget, I'm going to introduce my dear friends and people that are here with me on this journey. That is Jenny Mortak, who's been back since haven't been back since October, I think. So I'm very, very happy to have her here. And then there's Diana Menskita-Lamborg, who we know has been on this journey with me for quite some time now. And Swati Rahatgi, she was here last time and she is here today, though not in this form as you can see us, though she has written something that we will be implementing in this conversation. So, and myself, Raditya Lazri from Mindful Being, who is here to help us through this conversation of stress and not to derail us too much because it is a hot topic for me and for many of us. So make yourselves comfortable for just a brief moment. You can close your eyes if you like. Maybe it's just keeping your eyes just slowly down, whatever you need right now. And just take a few deep breaths. Just notice your heart. Maybe it's beating at its regular pace. Maybe it's beating faster than usual. Maybe you don't even notice the heartbeat really. Just notice your breath. Notice your body. You can put your attention in your feet or your seat or your hands. Take a few more deep breaths. Really release the out breath so you can feel a release. And slowly return to this space. If your eyes are closed, you can open them now. If your gaze was down, you can slowly bring it up if you're ready. And yes, today we're talking about this beautiful topic, stress. And as I said, the reason I had to do this breathing is to really collect ourselves here in this present moment. Because when I think of stress, it just pulls us all over the place. It makes us lose our grounds. It makes us feel overwhelmed with emotions, with thoughts, not knowing why we're here, questioning why are we here and why are we doing what we're doing. And then there are moments when we have this clarity, when that stress has released, when it has passed, which everything is. And so I really wanted us have this conversation around what is stress to us? When does it show up? How does it show up? And what do we do to really help it pass through these difficult moments, these upwards and downwards emotions that bring us joy and happiness and all this? Because that can be stressful too, being always joyful and, oh, you know, it's like that can be stressful, right? Although that's not what we usually refer it to. And as I mentioned, Swati has written a few things, and she started off with a definition, which I wanted to bring in here and start our conversation around what is stress. First, what is stress as a definition to you, and then expand on it, how it shows up. So first, she mentions, so let's define stress. Stress, in simple words, is extending beyond our capacity or capability. It can be related to overeating, resulting in a digestive disorder, or overthinking, resulting in anxiety, or even overdoing, leading to a burnout. So, my dear panels, what is the definition for you? What is there that you wanted to add to what I just read? What comes up for you when you hear stress?
Okay. Okay.
Jenny, you can just start.
I feel like we do that every time. Thank you. So what you just said with Swati's definition really makes me think of how stress is a tool designed to lead us to balance. It may not be a tool we enjoy using. It may not be a tool we recognize often, but if we're willing to listen to stress, like we listen to feelings of fear or feelings of anger or feelings of joy or sadness, we can gain some insight. What is this trying to tell me? And so I wrote down the definition and how you also mentioned it can lead to overeating, overdoing, overthinking, and all these things that cause us to be out of balance. So really, stress has the potential to show us where something is out of balance and how we can take corrective action, not corrective as in right and wrong, but kind of like when you're driving a car and you notice you're slightly starting to veer to the side, you correct, you keep going down the path. Like you don't have to sit there and chastise yourself for the car veering a bit. You just, oh, time to veer, time to change. And if you're not listening to that signal early enough, that's when you're getting farther off the path. You know, maybe it's getting bumpy and rough, or maybe you even get yourself into the ditch. So when you listen to those signals early on, it's a little easier to come to balance. When we avoid listening to those signals, or we're not really sure what to even do with them, because I mean, we mentioned it before this conversation, we're not really taught a lot about these kind of life things, managing stress. We're not taught about a lot of these life skills. It can be really hard to figure out how to get yourself out of that ditch that we've accidentally driven into, and leading to those things you mentioned, eating disorders. Oh, they're leaving my head, but you mentioned some great things. Like, yeah, we can really get there if we don't listen to the signals. So I think of it as a tool.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Yes, Diana.
No, if you wanted to say something, Raditya, in between.
No, I wanted to expand.
So, you know, me expanding a lot of different sides. No, thank you both Jenny and Raditya, and also Swati for beautiful definitions. For me, actually, stresses have two different definitions, because I don't see stress as something negative, because I actually also see there is a positive form of stress that helps us to focus, that helps us to move forward. For example, if you have goals to achieve, that kind of stress can be a positive motor for a while. Or like if you are running and or exercising to pressure yourself, these kind of stresses are actually not negative, but they should be short-lived, as you said, Jenny, and they go up and down. And those I don't even have to, you know, analyze afterwards. But the other part of stress is more negative part, which, you know, from my story, I know way too well, is, yes, as Jenny, you really pointed it out, when you don't listen to your body, when you don't listen to these stressors, it can really take you down, like in my case, to 2 times of burnout and depression. So yes, for me, the stress could be, personally, for me, it could be mental. it's very, because I've been a lot in my head, but it also for me could be also stress from my body. That's what I was missing a little bit in Swati's definition, the unconscious stress that we don't even notice, maybe we don't even know about, we are not even aware of it. Because I did one hypnotherapy session 1 year ago, and I realized that I had this unconscious stress going on all the time. And when I actually looked at it, faced it, and and released it, then my stress levels really dropped down, and I felt so much more cool. And I also loved, Raditya, about the tools that help us, that you started with breathing exercise, because as you know, I love breath, because it's been a very, very important tool for me. Go back to my breath, to my awareness, or just using mindfulness, just to see my kids and just like focus on that for a while, and then go back to my body and think what was happening before. Because not always you can identify what it is directly. Sometimes you need to take a pause and then go back and just see, why was I reacting? I was stressed like that. What was happening? So there are so many layers on it for me.
Yes, thank you so much, Diana. Ending it with so many layers, because I was also realizing this as I was chatting with Jenny prior, that really is this way on how we view stress. We think that's what is, when in fact that's just the overall description of how we're feeling underneath, or what is going on underneath it. And we need to go through these different layers, as you mentioned, to really understand what is it that stresses us out, right? Like, to me, sometimes limitation of time stresses me out, right? Because I feel like, and again, what is it that that is the issue, right? And I realized it's not the time that's stressful, it's the outcome of it, right? Being late for something, not being appropriately, like not respecting the other person for their time, or not being, like if we're running late, let's say for the school bus, then that would mean I have to do something else, which then causes me to feel stressed that I don't have enough time for myself. So the reasons why we feel stressed are usually not about those things that we are stressed about, which means like those things that are happening in front of us. It's actually something totally out of place, which usually, and that's what I think what you said, Diana, as well, about, the two, like, it's not all negative. It's like we can get stressed out not having enough of the positive, right? So the stress can come that, oh my God, in my head, like thinking about the school bus, right? It's like, oh, I have less time to do my walk, or I have less time to do this. It's actually just me not having enough time for myself. And so by giving up something of me, so that can cause stress, which is a relationship to the positive thing that we would want to have, right? And so, yes, this is really where it all comes together for me.
Can I say that? Or did you want to say something, Jenny? Go ahead.
Just that was fantastic. Yeah, Dan and I love hearing what you have to say. So I want to hear what else you have to say.
No, I just wanted to say that when you were talking now, Raditya, I also realized that a lot of stressors come from our expectations that are not being met, or we fear that they will not be met. And most of it is like Eckhart is talking about, it's in our head. Or usually it's the same with fear and the stress and so on. Many cases that it's in our head because we think that this situation will have these outcomes, and then we get stressed. But if we take us back to this moment, as you know, mindfulness teacher, to this moment and here now, and just take a few breaths, usually we can realize we don't know that. So just bringing ourselves back to now and having this awareness, it's also very powerful.
Yeah, very.
I think you both really address something key here. It's that outcome. It's that what's happening and manifesting afterwards. So my interpretation of what you both said is we're being shown our unmet needs. We're being shown where we're not getting enough, or something that now our bodies, our minds, our emotions are calling out like, wait, hold on, I need this. That's not getting taken care of. And I really like that you pointed out the fact that, like, it's not necessarily the fact that you don't have enough time. It's not necessarily that we're upset about, because so many of us, that's our number one thing, especially parents. We say, I don't have enough time. And we spend a lot of time mentally stressing about that, which I feel like now, after we've defined it, I feel like that's not the appropriate use of the word is in this conversation, but we repeatedly think that. We create a belief by thinking that, and by reinforcing it and having it show up as true more and more often. But it's not that we want to hold and cradle and caress time. It's what we want to be able to do because of time. So I think you just both really just opened up a wonderful, wonderful door. And it's an opportunity to look at stress, look at what it's showing us, and then say, well, I have these unmet needs, which can be a difficult conversation to have with yourself, because we don't necessarily have those conversations amongst each other often, or even it can be scary to have that conversation with yourself and be honest and to really listen to yourself about that. So it's something that takes work. It's something that takes a couple different goes at it, but over time, that stress can really help us with that.
Yeah, and you bring it back to what you said earlier around like using stress as an indication on where we should put more attention to. So when we're out of alignment, or way of being, on the way we go through life, if it becomes over something, meaning too much of something, we need to readdress, reflect, and just really assess, okay, what is not working right now? Where am I doing too much or too little? Or maybe I didn't have enough sleep. Maybe I have to consider my bedtime again, or the foods that I eat, and so there are so many aspects, which, Diana said about the body, right? It's like we put too little focus on our bodies. That's why, the thoughts of like sleep and food came to me, because those are the taking care of our bodies. How many of us go to bed too late because they want to do this? I mean, that's me. Just last night, I was like, I have this pile of stuff I didn't do. And I realized last night, the reason why I stay up late to finish up stuff is because I procrastinated all day. All day I could have done this, right? Like I could have just taken a minute to do this. It takes me just same amount of time, but I decided not to do it any time in the day. And then at the end of the day, before I go to bed, I do want to I want to go to bed completed, right? So I wake up not with the same stuff still. And so that's what's causing us to be late. So that can stress us out. So this can all pile up. If we only get a handle of it during the day, we could go to bed at a certain time. So there is a lot of or just let go and say you know what, it's fine if it's not done. And I think this honesty is one thing that came up for me this entire morning. I actually, if you've seen it or not, I had a story this morning around honesty, being honest, and that really stresses me out when I am surrounded by people who I know there is a conflict happening, or even I would like to be more honest, and that not being able to voice my concerns or how I feel about something in a way that I would usually do it will cause a stress in my body, will cause me to lock down, makes me tight. And then, but I want to say it, and I want to be honest, and I want to share it, to release it, right? And that's why sometimes we cry, We cry to release that pain we have inside, to really let it out. But no, we can't, right? There are moments where we tell ourselves, no, I can't be crying. I'm in front of people. So thank you, Diana, for being so open today and sharing it with us. And it really is something to say, is that we need to be more comfortable with discomfort. I mean, this is why the month of February is about discomfort. This is why stress is here, because if we can just connect more to honesty in ourselves, to tell the truth that we feel overwhelmed, that it's too much for me, that I need your help. If only we can say those words and be honest and possibly have disagreements with someone else, we actually reduce our stress. And so, yes, open up to you.
Yes, I just wanted to jump in there because you said so many beautiful things, Raditya, and also you, Jenny. And I just popped into my mind that sometimes you can't say things in that situation. There are situations you can't. And I just realized that in those situations, for me, I was used to lock up my feelings, and it's not good, and it stayed there. But I learned during my journey, then sometimes it's good to journal in the evening. Just journal, just write everything down. And then maybe sometimes it will help you to cry as well while doing that. For example, today I was looking at the photos of my father, who recently passed away, and also of my husband's grandmother. She also recently passed away, and I'm looking for the pictures for her funeral, and my tears started running because she died just a few weeks ago, and we've been so busy taking care of her husband, who is 90 and is really weak, and we're organizing a lot, and we're working, and I'm putting so much energy and time in it, and I'm doing it for him, of course, because I care about him. But I also realized, that's why I was crying during my meditation, that I had still so much sadness in me that I didn't let myself let out, because I need so many things to fix in this moment. So I said to myself, I don't have time. But you see, as soon as I relaxed and just started just to sit, the tears were starting coming. And I know just in this Monday, I was just felt so stressed out. So I took my bike and I went to the lake and I took my bath. And it's just like someone took away the stress. And suddenly everything that felt gray and dull suddenly started to look more beautiful and alive again. And I was just so grateful. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Diana, for sharing this journey of yours within the past 24 hours, and also showing us easy, accessible tools to get back to ourselves and to take care of ourselves, even in the midst of discomfort and sadness and hurt and pain and all these parts that are like we're never going to get rid of them, nor do I think we should. I don't think we want to get rid of those emotions because they help us be human. They help us be in reality, in this moment. They share with us the inside, how we're really feeling about things. So thank you so much for this.
I think this is a beautiful opportunity to really showcase what you said, Diana, about the importance of release as a tool itself. That was a really beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. I'm so sorry for the losses that have been coming recently. That it's a process with them, and it makes me think of my journey, where I was raised in an environment where I was taught about things such as meditation, breathing, journaling. There was a lot of self-reflection, a lot of self-discovery in my immediate family. My parents literally met at a self-help conference. So that was luckily a big part of my upbringing. And there were times where I did not want to go to those tools. And then I would start kind of chastising myself. I know this. I know how helpful these are. They're right there. Why am I not doing it? And so that kind of put on a whole nother layer of guilt in itself. But I recognized, like, there were times I didn't want to do those. And I think I'm still figuring out, but I think a lot of it was feeling like I needed to, I didn't want to be vulnerable enough to do it. I had to protect myself by hiding from that vulnerability, asking myself those real questions. I think a lot of it was a defense mechanism. And when we're in stressful moments, like what you just talked about, having to get through those experiences, having to make plans, having to deal with the rest of life that's going on as these heartbreaking experiences happen to us. Oh, hang on, I just lost my train of thought. 1 second. All life is still going on as we still have all this to process, and we can tell ourselves that we just can't afford to go there right now. We can't afford to open up. We can't afford to deal with this stuff. We don't have time. We don't have, or we're not strong enough. We're worried we're going to break if we break down. But you just pointed out how much stronger you felt after that. And I don't want to use the word stronger, but more connected. You were more aligned. You were more well after that. And so I can think of a very different situation, but one where I had that similar release, and it's like, oh, this helps. But having struggles with my toddler, and I'm the parent and the preschool teacher that always hated nap time. And I get triggered very quickly from that and very frustrated. And I was thinking about how with young children, it's expected that they're going to have this big release. They're going to have what we call a tantrum, or they're going to throw their body, they're going to release energy, and then they're able to feel better afterwards because they have the wisdom to get that junk out instead of thinking they have to hold on to it. They haven't learned that that false truth from us that, oh, this is the effective way. It's like, no, they get it out of their body and they feel okay afterwards. And parents, we often don't do that. Adults, we often don't let ourselves do that. We say, I'm strong enough, I can handle this, I can regulate. We put a lot of positive words to it, but there's still that gunk in there. So I let myself feel frustrated. I took a 2-minute break while my son was very happy to just be like goofing off and like laughing, doing whatever in his crib. I'm like, I'm going to go in the living room. I'm going to scream into a pillow. And I didn't just do I did a scream at the top of my lungs 3 times because there was so much in there. I'm like, I know this has to go. It has to be gone. And I let so much of it out, and I was able to come back so much calmer. And then I held on to it still the next day. The next day, almost the exact same stuff happened. And I did not feel triggered. I did not feel like any of that happened. And I felt like I could do the practices that I know I want to do as a parent, which is respect that it's normal for my son to do this, that it's developmentally appropriate for him to do this. And so now here's the calm ways I can respond. Here are the logical ways I can respond. I felt like I could do that because I wasn't trying to repress and hold it all together. I genuinely let that garbage out because it was wasteful in my body. It was not creating anything positive. I let it out and I could move forward in the ways I wanted to. So that release, I think, is vital for our health and well-being. And you've mentioned before, like stress shows up in our body. If we're holding energy and emotions in our body, that's not good. We're creating illness and dis-ease and discomfort, and stuff's going to show up. If we try to squish it down here, it's like, it's going to pop out somewhere else. And that's not healthy. No matter how much we say it's best practice to ignore this, it's best practice to keep moving on. And a lot of other things that have validity, but they ignore this.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing a different perspective, a life perspective to the forefront, because there's really these very one that is a constant and one that is constantly there. It's a one-time happening, but then it's constantly there, right? And so it's something that we carry with us. And yes, before I share my thing about here, I wanted to bring in some parts of Swati, because she did say two things that I really think that might just connect to what you were saying, Jenny. And so the question is, how do I relate to stress and respond to it? I'm very human and I choose the easier path of fight. I put up with resistance. I push myself. I curse. I run on high energy. And finally I crash and then switch to flight mode, where I escape from being myself, the problem creators in this life, the suffering. It takes immense courage and strength to put up with the stress in a calm, peaceful manner, to accept it, embrace it as part of you, and work through it in fragments. Some days are better than others. Creativity is my healthy outlet for when I feel stressed. I write or draw or brew some tea, read a book, walk in nature, talk to a therapist or friend. There is so much you can do, but we always learn towards the easy way out. And because we run on our survival instincts and we think from a part of our brain, I strongly feel by deepening my practice, Swati's practices and rituals, connecting with herself and surrounding myself with a like-minded community gives me that support and platform to start feeling from a place of higher thinking that connects us with the cosmos and the divine. There is no right or wrong in this life. The question will always remain, is this suitable for me? And so this is really what both of you were saying. You just brought in different ways that you are dealing with those stresses. And I agree that we can't always talk about them, especially when the person might not be here that we can share this with, that why we're feeling the way we're feeling. And I think the challenge that I've been finding myself in, and that kind of like you would maybe consider stress, is these ways of, how should I say it, like being in a connection with other human beings where you can have these conversations where, and I'm a believer now that, which I didn't do in the past, like I wanted to have it right now. I want to talk about it right now because I want to release my stress. Like I wasn't a big fan of holding on to anything, so I would just get it out. And through my training, I'm learning slowly but surely that there has to be a time and place for everything. And that time and place, like what I notice is like, I still want to talk about it. And I want to have a conclusion of it. I want it to be completed and finished. I don't like these half-started things that cause me to feel a certain way. And then I'm just going to journal it and then I feel better about it. Like it just isn't enough. It's not enough. I've been dealing with a particular thing for over 6 months. And I tried to do that, right? I tried to write about it. I talked to people and not to that one person. And before this call, I had to write this email to once again reach out, to have a human conversation, an in-person conversation. Because up until this moment, it wasn't, I sent emails in the past and there was zero response. And we still see each other twice a month. So you can see that there is possibly a lot of stress happening to me every single time. I brought this situation into this group many times before. And I'm not coming from a place from righteousness. I don't want to be right in this moment anymore. I don't care to have a solution to this problem. All I want is to be acknowledged for how I am feeling. And so this to me is really where stress is being held back, when you don't allow other people to express them, to feel and release them, because me just yelling about it, me just writing about it, me just talking to people who are not involved in it is not going to do anything. And to me, this has been the most difficult thing I've ever been in, because I've never been refused conversation. And I just have to understand that some people are just not able to do this. But I won't stop and keep reaching out to make myself just more worthy of myself. Because reaching out has nothing to do if I get a feedback or not, because I can only do what I can do, right? And so one thing I've been realizing is that the impact that we're having, and it's been said to me many times in these past hours, 24 hours, is that we need to focus on the impact that we're making, no matter how good your intentions are. And my challenge in this whole thing is that, yes, I agree. And yet, the only thing I can know for sure is the intention that I have. So no matter the impact that I will have on you has to be discussed. If the impact that you make on someone else and it's not landing in a good way, in a stressful way, most likely, it has to be addressed so that we all know which state of mind we are in. And I think this is pretty much what I am seeing also when I'm listening to the two of you and like reflecting on the situation that I'm in, to really understand better on like here in my space, you in your space, and then the most important part, as you know, while we're having these conversations, the in-between part. That in-between part that can't be learned, that can't be described, that can only be done in conversation. And so to me, the truthful meaning of these panel discussions is to be able to increase that discomforting space in between people, because it's not really uncomfortable on my end, nor is it on you. It's that in between space that causes us to be stressful and impatient and like, I want it now kind of thing, right? It's not me, nor is it you. It's that thing we can't, it's that thing between. I don't know what it is. Maybe you know. And so it really to me is to, I will not lose my joy or my smile or my happiness over things like this, but they will bring thoughts into my head, right? It's not to blame someone. It's not to make someone wrong, as I said, right? And so to conclude my thoughts here is to really just point out that we have to be whole and complete with ourselves. We have to know the things that we do, as you both described, as you three described, is the way we deal with something is how we deal with something. I'm not telling you to do it this way, but we cannot expect, and then coming back to what Diana was saying, we cannot expect other people to do it the way we do it. And that's pretty much my conclusion of my experience, is that I can only do so much. And if I get worn out, if I get stressed out by not getting something in return, then I have to let it go. And that's the practice, but we can keep trying. So I open this up to you. Jenny, if you wanted to share something.
Mostly, thank you for putting words to an experience I'm dealing with in my unique experience. It just, I love getting together with people and talk about these things, because so often we can have such unique stories, and yet we're also here saying, me too. So thank you for putting some powerful words to that. There's a stressor, for lack of a better word, that, you know, so there is something that has added stress to my life for almost the past year. And I can really relate to it. I want to be right. I don't want to win. I don't want resolution. I don't even want this. I just want peace. I want to be heard. I want acknowledgement. I think that's very powerful. And it's important. It's really, really important, because it stays with us. It stays in our bodies. It stays in our hearts. It stays in our minds until it's done. So what does that endpoint look like? Does that mean the end of that specific interaction, or is it a bigger lesson in between? I'm not really sure. But something we've been talking about this whole time here is it's worthy of and needs to be acknowledged. It's important. I remember working in an environment, I had so much anger about what the people around me were doing, that I was feeling it in my body so much every day, that it was at a time where my husband and I had decided we wanted to start a family. And I remember putting that decision off because I didn't feel like I felt like my body was a hostile environment to become pregnant in, because that felt so real. And I've done so much work on it, and I still feel it coming back. I've released so much, and I'm still learning. So it's clearly a bigger life lesson that I'm learning on. and it's a very worthy, important one. And you really showcased that worthiness very well, Raditya. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry that I was off.
No, that's why I knew Jenny might have something to add, so you can relax and have the conversation.
No, but it was kind of funny because it was actually my husband, and he is for a second very stressed out about something. So in my mind, I wasn't laughing at him, but in my mind, I kind of was laughing. It's kind of funny. Not funny for him for a moment, and it will not be for a while, but he will manage that. I am sure of it. But thank you otherwise, Raditya and Jenny, and Raditya, for being so honest and open and sharing your story so raw. And I get it. I hear you. I hear you. I've been in situations similar to that, and it feels so heavy and so painful. For me, one of my wounds was not to be understood, or to be misunderstood. For me, it was a really, really hard thing. And I know me and my husband, as I told you before, like early in our relationship, we've been together for more than 20 years. So there've been periods that where, totally we felt misunderstood, and this space in the between, I really, really can relate to that. And it feels so hurtful. And it stresses you out totally. But what helped me in my journey, and as you say, everyone is different. So for me, what it helped me, and I think it's to be honest to yourself, to listen to your heart and do what you think in your heart is right for you. And for me, even though, for example, I said and did things, and I repeated and said and did things, and wanted to explain myself, and just didn't land, because he has totally different projection. He has totally different glasses, what he see reality through. So it just didn't, it didn't get there sometimes. So for me, what helped just to be more strong in myself and try to heal myself and learn, why is it so important to me? Why am I so sad about that? What can there be underneath that? And that journey actually helped me quite a lot. And our kids, both, as I told you before, they are greatest teachers to these things. And about the stressors, as you, Jenny, talked about your toddler, I mean, oh my God, during these 14 years has been I think it's been the most stressful period of my life, to be honest, really. And I mean, the kids, they really test my buttons, and they, as you said also, Raditya, they teach us all the time new things. And I still, about anger, I still feel very stressed when my kids are angry. I still have that problem with it, because I just get so triggered, and I want to be this calm person. And now I know the tools that we talked about, and deep breathing, and I'm better than that, and so on and so on. But it builds up and builds up and builds up, and sometimes it just spills over, and I scream, and then I have the guilt and shame, and so on and so on. But now I learned that I need to notice that actually I'm a person, a human being, who makes mistakes, and forgive myself, and know that I'll try to do better. But also, when I have time, I try to release it, because it does stick into our body. And shaking, actually, that what athletes do before it's a very good thing that I realized also. Just shake it off. Just release the energy from the body, as you both talked about. It's like it's thick, heavy energy, and just like shaking, it really helps, at least for me, when I can't scream in a pillow. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. You both mentioned guilt. And next week is actually the topic guilt. We're going to have a panel discussion. So if both of you are here, we got to explore this theme of guilt. And it definitely is there is just, everything is connected to each other for sure, right? Like you can't have one without the other. You can't have stress without joy. You can't have anything. Like everything is interconnected. Everything is one. There is, again, everything comes together. And so I really appreciate the two of you being here, Swati sharing everything here with me. There is more that she would have loved to share with us. The one thing I do want to say that I want to share what she's saying, the end and last sentence is really to bring this all together is, so every time the thought of stress arises, give it the antidote of rest, rest, rest. And that really is signifying what both of you have said. Rest can look in many different ways. It can be an activity. I feel like what she talks about rest is not only resting in like lying down and taking a nap kind of way of resting. It's also to just rest and do something we enjoy doing. And to really focus our attention on something that can lift us up. And as you just described, Diana, to really always know that then there is another side and that we can move through this. And we just find different ways, like shaking ourselves out. I mean, that is a powerful tool that we can access. And your people knows like, oh, she's there again. Let's shake it out together. Let's all do the shaky dance or something, you know? Mm-hmm. And it is really interesting. And actually, there was something I wanted to share that came to mind, but I forgot. So we're coming towards the end of today's conversation. I just wanted the two of you to share some things that you're taking away or something that you haven't shared yet that you still think is necessary for us to hear, and just anything that comes to mind. Yes.
Diana, you always let me go first, so I want to be polite and let you go first this time.
Oh, thank you so much. No, I just want to say that as we talked, that stress is so personal to all of us, how we relate to that, and there are so many layers of it, and not everything needs to be negative. It's one thing, and also that awareness is very important, at least for me, in that journey of stress. Awareness of my thoughts, awareness of my body, awareness of my breath, feeling, you know, if I'm breathing up there, probably I'm stressed. Just focusing and moving the breath down to the belly a few times, it's really good. And just, you know, not being afraid of it, knowing that it will pass if we don't hold on to it, or if it's the same with all the feelings. Also, if we don't hold on to it, or we try to forget it or suppress it, then it will come back, and it will come back higher and stronger. But if we just know it will pass, just this knowledge is also important. So thank you.
That's really good. That's a really great reminder. Thank you. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself, essentially. Like this stress won't be stronger than me. This won't overpower me. This ultimately doesn't have any power over me. I still have my power. Thank you, Diana. I right before you asked this question, Raditya, I wrote down like my big takeaway reminder today is remembering release and rest. So I really appreciate the space that you two have created to help me and help other folks kind of think about this. It's really wonderful. And what I'm wrapping my head around right now is this reminder. A lot of us can agree that things like time are an illusion, things that we perceive to have quantity, you know, that's our perception of it. Really, that doesn't have to be the case. There's enough, just enough in general to be able to meet all of our needs. You know, there's enough time and space and energy and options and ways of doing things to deal with the thing that we see as causing our stressor, and to be with and acknowledge it within its context. Because, yeah, like you said, like we don't always have the options we want for certain stressors, but there's enough time and space and energy to also meet our needs that stress is showing us aren't being met. We might not see it right away and may not feel like it, but that doesn't mean that's true.
Thank you very much for these final words. And yes, what we think is true might not necessarily be reality. So there is all this other thing. And yes, I agree. Time is what we make of it. Same as many other things in our lives, we just put too much attention on a limitation of something. We are more than that. We are more than the stress. We are more. So I can only repeat what both of you have said. So with that, I want to thank both of you so much for being in this difficult conversation around stress and how it makes us show up in our lives and sometimes not. And to really embrace ourselves for who we are truly inside and out, and to know that everything passes and that one thing changes, everything changes. So sharing with heart to you, and keep on moving up and look forward. There's always something, a bright side there. So thank you so much for being here with me today.